Savannah's heat clung to everything like a second skin. The Spanish moss swayed lazily from the live oaks as Claire Whitmore stepped out of the car, heels clicking against the marble of the law firm's private entrance. From the outside, everything about her life gleamed: tailored navy sheath dress, polished leather briefcase, blowout still perfect despite the humidity. Anyone watching would think she had it all, but Claire knew better. She didn't take the front elevator. She preferred the service lift, quieter, faster, and away from the gazes that followed her since the rumors started. Whispers of her being next in line for junior partner, of her quiet rise through the ranks. If only they knew the truth. Her apartment's rent was 3 months late, her mother's medical care unpaid, her sister barely hanging on. When the elevator doors opened to the 10th floor, she expected the usual emails, briefs, the clack of keyboards. Instead, her boss stood there waiting. "Claire," said Marcus Langley, his voice unusually clipped. "He's here, in the conference suite." Claire blinked. "Who?" "Daniel Reyes." Her spine straightened instinctively. Everyone at Whitmore and Langley knew the name. Tech magnate, private client, elusive, and the firm's biggest account by far. She had only heard about him in hushed updates during strategy meetings. His presence in Savannah was rare. Showing up in person, unheard of. Marcus looked uneasy, shifting weight between his feet. "He asked for you, personally." That made no sense. Claire adjusted her collar, smoothed her dress, and walked the corridor like it was a courtroom. As she reached the glass double doors, she caught her reflection. Polished, calm, convincing. She pushed them open. The room was chilled, deliberately so. Daniel Reyes sat at the head of the table, fingers laced together, eyes dark and unreadable. His tailored charcoal suit looked effortless, not a hair out of place, no tie. A quiet power radiated off him like heat from asphalt. He stood when he saw her. "Miss Whitmore." "Mr. Reyes," she replied, extending a hand. He didn't take it. Instead, he gestured to the seat across from him. "Please, sit." She obeyed, every lawyer's instinct buzzing. No documents were on the table, no briefcase, no assistant. Just the two of them. The silence was deliberate, uncomfortable. Finally, he spoke. "You've been at this firm for 4 years." "5, she corrected. He nodded slowly. "I've read your record. Impressive. Your win rate is exceptional. Clients trust you. Your ethics are consistent." She tilted her head, wary. "Thank you, though I'm not sure what this meeting is about." He looked at her, really looked. "I need a wife." Claire stared, uncertain if she'd misheard. "I need a wife," he repeated. "Not out of love. Not even companionship. It's functional." A slow, awkward silence settled like dust. "Functional," Claire echoed. "My family trust contains a clause, my late father's doing. If I don't have a legal heir by my next birthday 10 months from now, I lose control of Reyes Innovations, billions in assets, properties, the foundation. Gone." Claire leaned back, incredulous. "And you want to solve this with a contract marriage?" He didn't blink. "Yes." She laughed once, short and sharp. "You want me to be your wife, to have your baby?" "Yes." "Do I look like a surrogacy agency?" "You look like someone who doesn't waste time with small talk, who understands strategy, who keeps her family afloat on a junior associate's salary. You send half your income to your mother. Your sister is recently unemployed. You've maxed out your savings to keep up appearances here. You're 2 months from breaking." Her face went cold. "How do you know all that?" I research everyone I do business with, he said simply. Claire's fingers tightened around the edge of her chair. She couldn't decide if she was furious or terrified. And you think offering me a child, a contract, and what money makes this acceptable? I'm offering you security, a home, full custody after the divorce if you want it, a $3 million trust in your name, a property of your choice. Your career can continue untouched. We divorce after a year, quietly, no press. You think I'd sell myself that easily? No, he said. I think you'll consider it, because you've run out of better options. Claire stood, the chair scraping against the floor. This is absurd. It's legal. She paused. He continued, calmly. There's no coercion, no deception. You can walk out of here and never hear from me again. Or you can take a week, think, read the terms I'll send. You'll find them favorable. Claire's heart was pounding. Daniel Reyes stood too, slowly. But before you decide, I want you to know something. She didn't speak. He met her eyes. His were dark, steady, and impossibly calm. I'm not looking for a partner or love. I'm not offering some fairy tale. This isn't romance. It's inheritance, legacy. You'll have comfort, independence, and a child, if you want one. But it will not come with affection or attachment. Her voice finally returned. And what do you get? He gave the barest hint of a smile. Control. The room felt colder now. Claire didn't remember walking out, only the blur of glass and hallways and the slow click of her heels on marble. Outside, the city air hit her hard, damp, heavy. She didn't cry. She didn't shake. She walked 3 blocks before realizing she still had her briefcase in hand but hadn't taken her phone. She sat down on a bench in Forsyth Park, overlooking the moss-covered oaks and listening to the quiet hum of Savannah's afternoon rhythm. Her life had been built on logic. Earn it, win it, climb higher. Don't owe anyone anything. And now, a man had offered her a contract. Not a dream, not even love, just terms. All she had to do was sign and carry a child for a man who didn't want her, just her womb and her compliance. Claire looked at her hands. They weren't shaking, but inside, everything felt like it was cracking. For the first time in years, Claire Whitmore didn't know what to do next. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. Claire sat at the kitchen table, staring at the edge of an unpaid medical bill. The ink smudged where her coffee cup had rested too long. Morning light spilled through the cracked blinds of her apartment, soft and indifferent to the chaos in her mind. She hadn't told Emily. Not yet. In the next room, her sister sang softly to herself, folding scrubs fresh from the dryer. Emily had always hummed when she was trying not to cry. Claire knew the difference. That tight edge in her voice, that quiet, invisible weight. Claire picked up the bill and placed it neatly back into the drawer with the others: gas, electric, rent, all unpaid, all marked with final notice. Are you heading in early? Emily appeared in the doorway, ponytail loose, eyes tired but bright with effort. Claire shook her head. No court today, just filings. Emily leaned against the counter, hugging her coffee mug. Do you remember when Mom used to say, "You're the storm, Claire. You don't wait on the weather"? Claire gave a small smile. Yeah, right before grounding me. She said it like it was a warning, but I think it was a blessing. Claire looked away. Her heart pressed hard behind her ribs. Emily, I got laid off. The words dropped like stone into water. Claire blinked, lips parting. What? This morning. I didn't want to tell you until after your meeting yesterday, but... Emily's voice cracked, just a little. They're cutting shifts at the clinic. I'm low on the seniority list. Claire stood up fast, pacing. We'll figure something out. Unemployment will kick in. You can temp. Maybe a private practice. I already applied to 3. No one's hiring until fall. Emily's smile was too practiced. I'll figure it out. Claire sat back down slowly. What about Mom's next appointment? The specialists? Emily didn't answer. That said enough. Claire stared at the table, at the scratches in the laminate. She could hear her own pulse behind her ears. Claire. Emily's voice was gentler now. What happened at the firm yesterday? Claire hesitated. Daniel's face came rushing back to her mind, calm, unbothered, certain. The arrogance of a man who had never been told no. The precision of his offer. Cold, calculated. Still, it clung to her like perfume she couldn't wash off. Just a client meeting, nothing major. Emily tilted her head. Claire, it's fine. Emily didn't press. She just reached out, rested a hand on Claire's, and squeezed it. We'll be okay. We always are. Claire wished she believed that. Later that day, as she sat in her office, Claire opened the email without letting herself think too hard. The subject line was simple. Proposal contract. Daniel Reyes had sent it directly. No assistant, no legal rep, just him. Her finger hovered over the mouse. She clicked. It wasn't long. 1 page, bullet pointed. Marriage term. 1-year residency requirement. Full-time at Reyes Estate, pregnancy goal. IVF or natural. Claire's choice, child custody. Claire retains full custody post-divorce compensation. $3 million, Savannah property. College trust for child. Public disclosure. Non-emotional relationship. Not expected termination clause. Either party may end with 30-day notice. No signature line, just terms. Clean, clinical, final. Claire stared at it for a long time, then closed the tab without saving. She wasn't that woman, was she? Her phone buzzed. It was Marcus. She answered on the 3rd ring. Claire, his voice was clipped, nervous. We need to talk. Now? Today. Boardroom, 4 o'clock. It's urgent. He hung up before she could ask anything else. Claire arrived early. The boardroom was empty, sunlight cutting across the glossy table like a scalpel. She sat down at her usual spot, middle left, neutral, not too assertive, not too passive. She hated how well she'd trained herself to stay invisible. Marcus walked in with a sealed envelope and 2 partners flanking him. Claire's stomach dropped. We want to talk about your future here, Marcus began. The air changed. You've been here 5 years. You're respected, reliable. But the partners have some concerns. Claire's heart ticked faster. Concerns. The impression you give, said Diane, the HR partner, folding her hands carefully, is that your outside obligations may be affecting your performance. You've been distracted. Cases reassigned, clients noticing. Claire opened her mouth to protest, but Marcus raised a hand. We're offering you a choice, he said gently. Step back for 6 months, rebuild, focus, or accept a quiet departure with a severance. Claire felt the floor drop beneath her. Her lungs stung. You're firing me. No, Diane said quickly. We're giving you space, respectfully. And if I say no? Marcus didn't answer. Claire stood, spine straight, understood. She walked out of the boardroom without a word. The elevator doors shut behind her, and the tears came before she reached the street. That night, Savannah was quiet. The moon hung low over the water. Crickets hummed. Claire sat on her porch steps in a borrowed hoodie, staring at nothing. Her phone buzzed once. A new message. Daniel Reyes. I assume you've read the terms. The offer expires in 3 days. No pressure, just time. She stared at the screen. The message was cool, professional, but something in her chest clenched hard. 3 days. She looked back at the house, Emily asleep on the couch inside, a bottle of generic pain meds by their mom's insurance folder. Claire wanted to scream. Instead, she pressed her forehead to her knees and breathed, slowly. Everything she'd built was crumbling. Everything she believed in was failing. And one man, with one contract, could make it all disappear at a cost she wasn't sure her heart could survive. She closed her eyes. The silence echoed louder than her thoughts, and she whispered to the night, not sure who she was even asking. What would it cost to stop drowning? The morning Claire decided to say yes. Savannah was blanketed in fog, thick, silver, and soft. It rolled through the streets like a secret waiting to be told. She stood outside Daniel's estate with her hands clenched at her sides. The gate had already opened. She hadn't even rung the buzzer. The house sat on the edge of the marsh, far enough from downtown to feel like its own world. Spanish moss dripped from ancient oaks like whispers. Everything about it felt expensive and quiet and intentional. A house built by someone who didn't want to be seen but needed to be obeyed. Daniel met her at the door. No suit this time. Just a pressed white shirt, sleeves rolled up, dark jeans, barefoot. He looked like he hadn't slept. Claire stepped inside without speaking. Her heels clicked against the hardwood, echoing through the vaulted entryway. She turned to face him. You'll rewrite the contract. He didn't blink. What terms? No intimacy outside of conception. I'll decide how and when that happens. No obligations to attend social events. I will live here, but I keep my name, my legal autonomy, and my private bank account. Daniel nodded once. Done. You'll also add a clause. 1 year only. No extensions, no renegotiations. After that, I leave, and I take the child. No contest. He studied her, his expression unreadable. Why now? He asked quietly. Claire didn't answer. She couldn't. She was too tired to pretend pride was still an option. Daniel nodded again. The lawyer will send the updated document by the end of the day. We can be married within the week. I'm not wearing white, she said flatly. I wouldn't expect you to. He stepped aside, gesturing toward the hallway. I'll show you to your room. Claire followed him past a winding staircase and into a wide, sunlit hallway that smelled like lemon oil and lavender. Everything was polished to perfection. Not a speck of dust, not a picture out of place. She wondered if anyone had ever truly lived here. At the last door on the right, he paused. Your space. Entire wing, actually. Bedroom, office, private bathroom. You're free to change anything you want. Claire opened the door and walked in. The room was beautiful. Tall windows, pale blue walls, antique writing desk, a bed that looked like it had never been slept in. She turned around. And yours? Opposite side of the house. Of course. Daniel hesitated, then added, There are staff here during the day. Housekeeping, groundskeeping, a chef on call. They won't bother you unless you ask. Claire nodded, already feeling the chill. He looked like he might say more. But then, as always, Daniel Reyes chose restraint. He left her in silence. Claire stood alone in the middle of a perfect room, with her entire life packed into one suitcase by the door. That night, she couldn't sleep. The sheets smelled like linen and citrus. The silence felt artificial, too quiet, like the house was trying not to disturb her. She got up around midnight and wandered into the hallway. The soft patter of rain tapped the windows. A storm had started. As she passed the kitchen, she saw a sliver of light. Daniel was sitting at the long island, barefoot again, stirring tea. The room was dim, no overhead lights, just the underglow of the cabinets casting gold against the marble. He didn't flinch when she entered. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. He gestured to the stool across from him. "Chamomile?" Claire sat down slowly. "Sure." He poured her a cup like it was the most natural thing in the world. For a few moments, they just sat there. Two people, strangers, married in contract but not in emotion, sharing silence like a fragile truce. "You don't live here," Claire said finally. Daniel looked up, surprised. "This house," she explained, "it's staged. It's beautiful, but it doesn't breathe. Nothing personal. No books, no photos, not even a coffee mug left in the sink." He didn't answer right away. Then, "It was my father's house. He built it before I was born. I inherited it 5 years ago, and never changed a thing." Daniel stirred his tea slowly. He believed in image, presentation, order. "I keep it for business, clients, board members." Claire sipped her tea. "And now me." He looked up at her, something flickering behind his eyes. "You're not here for show. Then what am I here for?" He didn't reply. The rain picked up outside, a soft percussion on the glass. Claire stared down at the steam curling from her mug. "Do you even want a child?" Daniel's eyes didn't move from her face. "Yes." "Because of the trust? Because it's the only thing I've ever promised to someone I loved." The words hung in the air, soft and unexpected. Claire watched him carefully. "Your father?" He nodded. "He was obsessed with legacy, names, bloodlines. He never told me he was proud of me, not when I launched the company, not when I made my first $1 million. But the day I promised to have a child, he called me a man." Claire's throat tightened. "I told him on his deathbed," Daniel said quietly. "He asked me to give our name meaning again. I said I would." She stared at him, trying to reconcile the cold man from the contract with the one sitting before her, now quiet, haunted, strangely honest, and still, she didn't know who he really was. "I'm not doing this for your father," Claire said. "I know. I'm doing this because I don't have many choices left. That doesn't mean I won't protect myself, or the child." Daniel's gaze didn't waver. I wouldn't expect anything less. They sat in silence again. But this time, it wasn't sharp. It didn't cut. Claire stood first. As she reached the door, she paused. "What's your favorite color?" He looked up, surprised. "What?" "Your favorite color. I realized I don't know a single personal thing about you." Daniel blinked. Then, softly, "Indigo." Claire nodded once. "Good night, Daniel." "Good night, Claire." She walked back through the silent hallways, heart pounding for reasons she couldn't explain. It wasn't romance, not yet. But it was the beginning of something. A thread, delicate and new, pulled tight between two people who didn't believe in fairy tales yet were about to write one neither of them saw coming. If you enjoyed this video, comment 1 to let me know. If not, comment 2. Your thought mattered to me either way. The sound of Claire's heels clicked across the stone path leading to the garden terrace, each step echoing louder than it should. A heavy warmth hung in the savannah air, thick with magnolia and tension. Daniel walked half a step behind her, silent but solid. His hand had brushed hers once in the car and pulled away so quickly it might have been an accident or a hesitation. She wasn't sure which unsettled her more. They rounded the corner, and the estate opened wide, lush hedges, string lights glowing against the velvet dusk, tables wrapped in ivory linen. The Reyes Foundation Summer Gala. Claire had attended fundraisers before, courtroom events, networking dinners, but this was something else. Every guest here came dressed in legacy, money, old and new, influence, sharpened to a smile, and now she was on Daniel's arm, paraded before them as his wife. No one knew it was a contract, not yet. "Smile," he murmured. She did, barely. A waiter offered champagne. Daniel waved it off, but Claire accepted. Her fingers trembled just slightly around the glass. "You're early," came a voice from behind them, warm, rich, and unmistakably southern. Claire turned to see an older woman approaching, silver hair swept into a flawless twist, eyes sharp as glass. A dark green dress hugged her frame, elegance with an edge. "Claire," Daniel said, "this is my grandmother, Luz Reyes." Claire extended her hand, nerves prickling beneath her skin. "It's lovely to meet you." Luz didn't take her hand. She studied Claire with a smile that never touched her eyes. "You don't wear your ring," Luz said softly. Claire blinked. "Excuse me? Your wedding ring." Luz tilted her head. "Women usually wear them at events like this, especially when introductions are being made." Claire's mouth opened, but Daniel spoke first. "We're having it reset. It's being resized." Luz's smile sharpened. Of course." Claire forced a gracious laugh, setting her champagne down untouched. "I've heard wonderful things about you," she said, steadying her voice. "I doubt that," Luz replied, then turned smoothly toward another approaching guest, dismissing her like a breeze. Claire stood frozen for a moment, pulse pounding, cheeks burning. Daniel stepped closer. "I should have warned you." "You think?" she muttered under her breath. They moved through the crowd, faces turned, eyes lingered. Everyone wanted to meet her, ask how they met, when they knew it was love, what their plans were. Claire smiled, lied, smiled again. Her throat tightened with every handshake. And then her. A woman in crimson, lips painted with intention, gliding through the crowd like she owned the lawn. Claire knew before Daniel said her name. "Marla," he greeted, voice polite but clipped. "Daniel." Marla's gaze slid to Claire, slow and deliberate. "You didn't tell me you'd brought a guest." Claire extended a hand. "Claire, his wife." Marla's smile didn't falter. "Of course, the new Mrs. Reyes. I've read about you. Impressive resume. And such a quick romance, how refreshing." Claire's fingers curled around her clutch. Quick doesn't always mean shallow. Marla's eyes sparkled. "No, but it often means temporary." Before Claire could respond, Daniel stepped in. "Excuse us." He led her away, not touching her, not apologizing, just guiding, like he was managing a problem. Claire pulled her arm free as soon as they were out of earshot. "That's your ex?" "Yes. She still has access to your parties?" Daniel exhaled through his nose. "The Reyes Foundation board invited her. She's a donor. I can't control that." Claire shook her head, heat rising in her throat. "You could have warned me about all of this. I didn't think it mattered." "It does," she said, sharper than she meant to. "Because whether or not this marriage is real, I'm the one standing beside you. And right now, I'm drowning in whispers and fake smiles and your ex-girlfriend's smirk." He didn't answer. She stepped back. "Say something." Daniel met her eyes. "You're right. I should have warned you." The quiet sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. He looked tired. Not in the way rich men pretend to be tired, truly worn, in that quiet, aching way that crept through bones and made you forget how to speak. Claire's anger loosened just a fraction. Before she could reply, a voice interrupted them. "Daniel." "Lose again." "May I steal your wife for a moment?" she asked, not waiting for permission. Daniel glanced at Claire, something like regret in his eyes. "If she's willing." Claire nodded stiffly. Luce led her through the garden, away from the lights, toward a quiet stone bench beneath a willow tree. The hush of cicadas surrounded them. Luce folded her hands in her lap. "Do you love my grandson?" Claire looked at her. "I don't think that's any of your business." Luce's mouth twitched. "That's not a no." Claire didn't speak. "Daniel was a boy who learned to build walls before he learned to read," Luce said softly. "His father was a man of legacy, not warmth. Daniel was raised to perform, not to feel, and yet he still chooses to hope. That makes him foolish and precious." Claire swallowed, throat tight. "I'm not here to hurt him." "No," Luz said, "but you're not here to love him either." Claire blinked. "You don't have to explain," Luz continued. "Women like us, we do what we must, for family, for survival. But just know this. Daniel Reyes may be powerful, but his heart, it's the last thing in his life he hasn't learned how to protect." Claire looked away, the words stinging more than she expected. "I appreciate your honesty," she said quietly. Luz stood. "Honesty is cheap. Integrity is expensive." She walked back toward the lights, leaving Claire beneath the willow, breathless in the dark. Later, as they drove home in silence, Daniel finally spoke. "Did she corner you?" she questioned me. He nodded, eyes fixed on the road. Claire watched him in the dim light. The strong line of his jaw, the way his hand rested on the wheel, steady but tense. "Why did you choose me?" she asked. He glanced at her. "You said you needed someone logical, unattached, but you could have picked anyone." Daniel looked back at the road. "Because you don't pretend." Claire turned toward the window, trying to keep her voice even. "Maybe I'm pretending more than you think." His voice dropped, barely above a whisper. "Then lie to me better." The words were soft, but they split something open in her chest. She didn't speak for the rest of the drive, and when they reached the estate, Daniel didn't walk her to her room. He simply opened the car door for her, then disappeared into the house. Claire climbed the stairs alone. Tonight, everything felt heavier. The dress, the silence, the ring that didn't exist. She stood by her window for a long time, staring out into the moonlit marsh. A storm was coming, not the kind that howled or broke things, the kind that changed everything quietly, from the inside out. The next morning, Claire found a note slipped under her door. "Meeting with Dr. Halprin, 10 a.m., sharp, Wing B, no signature, no explanation." She stared at it for a long second, the crisp handwriting familiar now Daniel's. She dressed in silence, choosing a soft slate blue blouse and dark jeans. Simple, clean, non-threatening. There was something about this house, this entire arrangement, that made her constantly weigh every choice. How much to show, how much to hide, who she had to be, depending on who was watching. The clinic wing was tucked behind the east side of the estate, past the library and down a hall that smelled faintly of eucalyptus and sterile intention. A discreet private medical suite, clearly designed for the kind of man who didn't like being seen in waiting rooms. Dr. Halprin was waiting, mid-40s, polished, warm smile. Her handshake was firm but not forceful. "You must be Claire. Please, sit." Claire did, glancing around the room. Not cold, not clinical. The walls were painted a warm blush, with soft lighting and a small glass vase of sunflowers in the corner. "This is just an initial consultation," Dr. Halprin began gently. "Nothing invasive, no decisions today. I'm here to support your preferences, your autonomy, and your timeline." Claire felt her shoulders drop a fraction. "Thank you. I understand you've entered into a unique arrangement with Mr. Reyes. I won't pretend to know the details, but I do need to ask. Are you comfortable moving forward with a pregnancy plan?" Claire hesitated. Comfortable isn't the word I'd use. Prepared, maybe. Determined, definitely. Halprin nodded. "Do you want to try naturally, or would you prefer assisted methods?" "I want control," Claire said without flinching. "Whatever path gives me the most agency. This isn't about romance." The doctor didn't judge. She just took notes. "Understood." Claire glanced toward the window, where the sun poured in like honey. She felt distant from herself, like she was watching someone else play her part. "You're not the first woman I've worked with in an unconventional situation," Halprin offered gently. "But I'll say this, your voice in this process matters. Even if the arrangement feels transactional." Claire met her eyes. "I've given up everything to do this, so if I'm having a child, it better be the one thing I get to claim as my own." The doctor gave a soft smile. "We'll make sure it is." Later that afternoon, Claire returned to her wing of the estate, exhausted and raw. She stepped out of her heels, let her hair down, and walked barefoot across the cool floors, unsure what to do with the weight sitting in her chest. She found Daniel in the greenhouse. It was the last place she expected him, among orchids and citrus trees and long tables filled with pots and pruning shears. He had a spade in his hand and dirt under his nails, sleeves rolled to his elbows, hair messier than usual. "You garden?" she asked, genuinely surprised. He didn't look up. "I maintain. My grandmother used to care for it. Said it was the only place in the house that felt alive." Claire stepped closer, inhaling the earthy scent of soil and citrus blossoms. "That's not in your resume." He glanced at her. "Neither is marrying for legacy." For a beat, they just stood there. The air was warm, damp, fragrant. "I met with Dr. Halprin," she said softly. Daniel straightened. "And?" "She's good, respectful, thorough." "Did you make a decision?" "Not yet." He nodded and went back to pressing a young fig tree into its pot. Claire watched him for a moment, unsure if the ache in her chest was fear or something far more complicated. "Do you ever think about the child?" He looked up again, slower this time. "Yes." "What do you see?" Daniel paused, dirt falling from his fingers. "A girl, strong, smart, not afraid to challenge the world." Claire's breath caught. "A girl?" He nodded. "I've always pictured a daughter." She blinked, surprised by how easily that shook her. "And you?" he asked. Claire sat on the low stone bench nearby. "I haven't let myself picture it. Not really. I've been too busy trying to survive the math of it all. The risk, the timing, the price." Daniel walked over, dusting soil from his hands, and leaned against the edge of the planting table. "Do you regret it?" he asked. Claire looked up at him. "This deal," he clarified. "Us." She searched his face. "Every hour." His brow lifted slightly. "And yet," she continued, "every hour I also feel like maybe I've stepped into something that could become real, or break me completely. It changes by the minute." Daniel's eyes didn't move from hers. "That's the most honest thing either of us has said." They stood in silence again, but this time it pulsed with tension, a low hum of truth beneath everything unsaid. Finally, Claire broke it. "I need one more condition added to the contract." He nodded once. "What is it?" That if this becomes too much, if I lose myself, or the child is at risk, I can leave. Without penalty. No negotiation. No persuasion. Daniel met her gaze. Done. Claire felt her chest tighten, not with fear, but with a strange, sharp relief. Not trust, not yet, but something close enough to make breathing easier. As she turned to leave, Daniel spoke again. You asked why I picked you. She stopped. You weren't afraid of me, he said. Everyone else either tried to please me or avoid me, but you made me earn your attention. Claire looked back, eyes softening. You haven't earned it yet. He gave a quiet smile. I know. She walked back through the greenhouse, heart rattling against her ribs, hands trembling despite the calm. Outside, the sun had started to sink. Light spilled through the glass in long golden streaks, and for the first time since this began, Claire didn't feel like a pawn. She felt like the storm again. Not someone waiting to be chosen, but someone beginning to choose. Claire stood at the edge of the Reyes library, her fingertips brushing the spine of a leather-bound book she didn't recognize. It was raining again, Savannah's kind of rain, where the sky didn't roar, it whispered. A slow, steady rhythm that made the world outside feel like it was folding inward. She wasn't reading, she was waiting. For the weight of her decision to settle, for the quiet to make sense. It had been 3 days since the meeting with Dr. Halprin, 2 since the greenhouse, and 1 since she signed the final version of the contract with every clause she'd requested, every line secured with her initials. There was no turning back now. You're up early, came Daniel's voice from behind her. She didn't turn around, couldn't sleep. I didn't think you read history. I don't, she said, pulling the book off the shelf. But it's easier to touch someone else's past than face your own. Daniel stepped beside her, coffee in hand. He looked different in the mornings, less guarded, like the armor he wore by daylight hadn't caught up with him yet. He offered the second cup silently. She took it. They stood in that quiet space for a moment, steam curling between them. Emily called last night, Claire said, her voice soft. Daniel nodded once, like he already knew. She asked how I was adjusting, if I felt safe. His gaze flicked to hers. Do you? Claire sipped the coffee. It's not about feeling safe. It's about not feeling erased. Daniel leaned against the edge of the window frame. That won't happen. Not here. You can't promise that. I can try. The way he said it low, certain made something catch in her chest. I need a favor, she said after a beat. His brow lifted slightly. All right, I want to go back to my apartment. Alone, just for a few hours. Daniel didn't answer immediately. I won't disappear, she added. I just need to see it. One more time, my life before all this. He studied her. You're not someone who lets go easily. No, she agreed. But I can't pretend to build something new if I haven't said goodbye to what came before. Daniel nodded slowly. Take the car. I'll have Paul drive you. No security detail. Just you. Claire blinked, surprised. Thank you. His voice softened. You don't owe me gratitude for your freedom. She stared at him for a moment too long, then turned back to the window. The next morning, the apartment felt smaller than she remembered. Colder. Her breath fogged in the chill as she stepped through the door, the scent of old wood and forgotten lavender still clinging to the walls. Everything was exactly where she'd left it, the coffee mug by the sink, her half-folded laundry on the couch, a stack of unopened mail fanning out across the table. It wasn't just an apartment, it was the version of herself that had once fought so hard to stay upright, a woman who paid bills in fragments, who burned the midnight oil for pro bono cases and skipped dinner to make rent. She walked slowly through the living room, fingertips trailing along the back of the couch. In the corner, a photo frame caught her eye. It was one of the few she'd left out: Emily in her nurse's scrubs, Claire in a blazer 3 sizes too big, both of them laughing over burnt toast on moving day. She sat on the couch, holding the frame in her lap. She didn't cry, but she did let the silence sit beside her, and then, after an hour, she stood. She opened the drawer where her notebooks were kept, tucked away beneath stacks of legal pads and receipts. Inside, beneath it all, was the envelope. The one she hadn't let herself open since her mother's diagnosis, handwritten, stained at the corner with something she didn't want to name. It was addressed to Claire Elise Moore, the handwriting shaky but familiar. She unfolded the letter slowly. My Claire, I don't know how much time I'll have when you read this, but if you're reading it, you've probably already done something brave and reckless and brilliant, because that's who you are. I want you to know that life is not a ledger. You can't balance it. It will never make perfect sense. But love is never wasted, not even when it hurts. Take the leap, Claire, even if you fall. I'm already proud of you. Always, Mom. Her hand trembled as she folded it back up. It was the first time in weeks she let the tears come quiet, slow, as if her body had finally granted her permission. By the time she returned to the estate, the sun had begun to burn through the clouds. She didn't announce her arrival, just walked in, past the foyer, past the kitchen, up the staircase. Daniel was in the study, reviewing blueprints. Head down, she stepped into the doorway. I'm ready. He looked up. For what? Claire met his eyes. To begin. Daniel rose, walking toward her, cautious but curious. You're sure? She nodded. I went back to say goodbye. Now I'm here to say yes. His voice was quiet. To what, exactly? She took a breath. To the possibility, she said. To the child. To this contract. And to whatever comes after, if anything does. Daniel studied her. For a long moment, he didn't move, didn't speak. And then, carefully, he reached for her hand. Not with possession, with permission. Claire didn't pull away. Their fingers barely touched. But in that single moment, something unspoken shifted. Not love, not yet, but the shape of something trying to grow where nothing had dared to before. And for the first time, they stood not as opponents or actors in a deal, but as two people, cautiously stepping into the unknown, side by side. Claire pressed her palm to the sun-warmed glass of the greenhouse, eyes closed, letting the soft heat settle over her skin. Outside, the marsh swayed with the breeze, gold and green dancing in slow rhythm. She hadn't noticed before how alive this place could feel when she allowed herself to stop bracing for disappointment. It had been 4 days since she told Daniel she was ready. Since then, everything had shifted, quietly, like a tide changing without fanfare. He hadn't rushed her, hadn't hovered or pressed for timelines, but something in the way he looked at her steadier now, with less calculation and more hope, made it harder to pretend they were still strangers bound by ink and signatures. Today, they were meeting Dr. Halprin again. This time, together. Claire adjusted the soft cream sweater she wore, ran her fingers through her hair, and walked toward the main house. Her breath caught slightly as she passed the long hallway with portraits she still hadn't learned the stories behind. Daniel was waiting near the stairs, dressed down again, dark sweater, slacks, no tie. There was a stillness to him today, as if even he felt the gravity beneath the surface. Ready? He asked. Claire nodded, her voice caught in her throat. as I'll ever be. The car ride was mostly silent, but it wasn't uncomfortable. Just full of thoughts neither knew how to name yet. At the clinic, Dr. Halprin greeted them warmly. Claire, Daniel, thank you both for coming. They were ushered into the same cozy room with blush walls and the same vase of sunflowers, fresher this time. Claire sat first, smoothing her skirt. Daniel remained standing for a moment before lowering himself beside her, his knee almost touching hers. Halprin didn't waste time. Based on Claire's tests and scans, you're a strong candidate for natural conception, but you do have some hormonal irregularities that might make timing important. Claire nodded. And assisted? Halprin leaned forward. Assisted IVF is certainly an option. It would give us more control, especially with fertilization and early development. But it's invasive, emotionally intense, and expensive, even for people like you. Claire's gaze flicked to Daniel. He didn't flinch. I want to try naturally first, she said quietly. If that doesn't work, we pivot. Daniel finally spoke. Whatever she decides, we'll follow. Claire looked at him. He said we without hesitation. Doctor, Halprin smiled softly. I'll write up a plan. Claire, I'd like you to begin supplements. No pressure to begin trying this week, but we should align calendars. Claire nodded, absorbing the gravity of it all. After the appointment, they walked back out into the parking lot, the afternoon sun casting long shadows across the pavement. Daniel opened the car door for her. She paused, glancing at him. You don't have to pretend to be the perfect gentleman, she said. I'm not pretending, he replied, voice low. I'm just learning. Claire slid into the seat, her heart thudding with quiet confusion. Back at the estate, she found herself in the kitchen, rifling through cabinets. She needed distraction, something tangible. The emotional weight was too much to hold all at once. To her surprise, Daniel joined her not long after. I didn't know you cooked, she said, watching as he pulled a carton of eggs and fresh herbs from the fridge. I don't, but I like omelets, and you looked like you needed one. Claire raised an eyebrow. That's oddly specific. He gave her a half smile. You furrow your brow when you're overwhelmed. And you pace. You've circled this kitchen twice. She leaned against the counter, watching him crack eggs like he'd been doing it for years. You notice more than you let on. I always have. The smell of butter and rosemary filled the space. It was strange, domestic, almost sweet. They weren't lovers, not yet, but there was a softness between them now, an unspoken truce. Claire broke the silence. You mentioned your father a few times, but never your mother. Daniel's expression didn't change, but the pause in his movement was unmistakable. She left when I was 13, he said. Couldn't take the control, or the silence. My father never spoke about it, just moved on like she never existed. Claire swallowed. Did she ever come back? Once, he said. When I was 21, I was already in law school. She told me she regretted staying as long as she had, said I was too much like him. Claire's heart ached for him in a way she didn't expect. You're not. Daniel looked up at her, the vulnerability in his eyes raw and startling. Aren't I? No, she said, firmer now. You're guarded, but you're not cruel. The words settled between them. He slid the finished omelet onto a plate, handed it to her. Claire took a bite, surprised. Okay, this is actually good. His mouth lifted. I follow instructions well. She smiled. They ate quietly for a few minutes, the clinking of forks against porcelain the only sound. Then Daniel set his fork down and looked at her directly. If we do have a child, he said, what kind of parent do you think you'll be? Claire blinked, caught off guard. "I don't know," she admitted. "Probably the kind that over-prepares, reads too many books, asks too many questions, but also the kind that listens. I want them to feel safe, seen." Daniel nodded, thoughtful. "And you?" she asked. "What kind of father will you be?" He didn't answer immediately. "I want to give them something I never had," he said finally. "Room to fail, to feel, to be more than a name." Claire's breath hitched. "Do you think we can do this?" she whispered. He looked at her, not with certainty but with honesty. "I think we won't let each other fall," he said, "even if we don't know how to fly yet." Her eyes burned, emotion thick in her throat. She nodded once. It wasn't a love story yet, but it was something braver, a beginning with its feet on solid ground and its heart still learning how to beat in rhythm with another. Claire stood at the edge of the nursery, an empty room at the far end of the Reyes estate. Dust filtered through the air like mist, catching in the morning light. The walls were bare, painted a soft cream, and the floor creaked faintly under her steps. It had once been a guest room, forgotten, unused. Now, it might hold a future. She took a slow breath, running her fingers along the edge of the window pane. "I thought we could start here," Daniel said from behind her. She turned. He leaned in the doorway, sleeves rolled, holding 2 mugs. One was hers chamomile, just how she liked it. "You remembered," she said softly, taking it. "I listen," he said, "even when you think I don't." Claire smiled faintly but didn't reply. Her eyes swept the room again. "I don't know how to design a nursery," she admitted. "I've never even bought a baby blanket." "We can bring in someone," Daniel offered. "Or we could do it together." Claire looked at him. "You want to pick out crib styles with me? I want to know what color you imagine when you think of our child's first room." Her heart did something sharp, small, immediate. She looked down. Sky blue, or maybe sage green, something calm. Daniel nodded. "Green sounds good." She took another sip of tea. The silence between them felt like a page turning. Claire walked further into the room and knelt down near the corner, dusting away a spot on the floor. "It's strange," she whispered, "how real it's starting to feel, like there could actually be a baby here. One day. Our baby." Daniel crouched beside her, resting his arms on his knees. "It scares me too." She looked at him. "You're scared?" He gave a quiet, breathy laugh. "Every minute." Claire blinked, surprised. "I grew up believing love was a transaction," he said. "A reputation to protect, a name to pass on. I didn't think I'd ever be here on the floor of a nursery I didn't plan for, with a woman I barely knew, hoping for something I can't control." Claire's throat tightened. "But you want it." He met her gaze. "More than I've wanted anything in my life." She swallowed hard, setting her mug aside. "Daniel." Before she could finish, the sharp ring of the house phone pierced the air. They both stood, startled by the interruption. Daniel checked his watch. "That line's never used." Claire followed as he stepped out into the hall and picked up the receiver on the wall-mounted phone just outside the room. "Ray's residence," he answered. His tone changed instantly. "Yes, I understand. Let her in." He hung up and turned to Claire. "It's Marla." Claire stiffened. "What does she want?" Daniel's jaw tensed. She didn't say. "Just that she needs to speak with me urgently." Claire crossed her arms. "And you're letting her in?" He looked at her carefully. "You can be there, if you want. I have nothing to hide." A few minutes later, they stood in the sitting room, Daniel near the window. Claire perched on the edge of the couch, hands clenched in her lap. Marla swept in like she always did, red lipstick, long trench coat, and a storm behind her eyes. "Daniel," she said, cool and direct. Then her gaze shifted to Claire. "And the new Mrs. Reyes." Claire didn't rise. "Say what you came to say." Marla dropped her coat onto the armchair and walked toward them. "I wasn't going to get involved. I told myself you'd figure it out, but now I see you've moved this circus into your own home. This isn't your concern," Daniel said, voice like ice. "You made it my concern when you started turning down board meetings, when you backed out of the London expansion. Don't you see what's happening?" She turned to Claire. "He's building a life around a fantasy." Claire rose slowly. "And you think I'm the fantasy? I think you're a woman who doesn't understand what she's been pulled into." Claire met her stare, unwavering. "Oh, I understand. You think I'm a placeholder for something you lost, but this wasn't about replacing you." Marla's lip curled. "You're a convenient narrative for him, a contract, a name on paper. But love? He doesn't do that. He never has." Daniel's voice cut through the tension. "That's enough." Marla turned to him, wounded pride flashing in her eyes. "You used to listen to me. I used to believe you knew me," Daniel said quietly, "but you never did." Silence. Marla looked at Claire one last time. "Be careful. That man only shows you what he wants you to see." Then she walked out, the door echoing behind her like a slap in the air. Claire sat again, breath shallow. "She's not wrong about everything." Daniel sat beside her. "I know. She thinks you can't love," Claire whispered. "And sometimes I wonder if I've convinced myself that this is more than just a business transaction." He turned to her. "Claire," she cut him off, her voice shaking. Don't say something just to make me feel safe. I need truth, even if it hurts." Daniel was quiet for a long time. Then, finally, he said, "The truth is, I don't know how to be in love, but I know what it feels like to want someone to stay." Claire's eyes filled with something she couldn't name. "And I want you to stay," he added, "even if we never figure the rest of it out." She didn't answer right away, just reached out, her hand finding his. No declarations, no grand promises, just skin against skin. A silent agreement that maybe they were both learning, and maybe, just maybe, learning was enough for now. Claire stood at the nursery door again, only this time she wasn't looking at an empty space. The room had changed. The walls had been painted a soft sage green, just as she'd imagined. In one corner sat a cherrywood crib with curved edges and soft cream bedding. A rocking chair faced the window, sunlight pouring in like a promise. Shelves had been installed bare for now, but waiting. Like her, she stepped inside, fingertips brushing the fabric of a tiny baby blanket folded over the crib's rail. It was hand-stitched, delicately embroidered with vines and initials she hadn't approved yet but already recognized. S.R. Sophia Reyes. Daniel's idea. He hadn't asked her first. She should have been annoyed, but she wasn't. The quiet footsteps behind her didn't startle her anymore. "I thought you might want to see it finished," he said softly. Claire didn't turn around. "You picked the initials." He stopped a few feet behind her. "They came to me." She ran her fingers along the edge of the crib again. "Sophia, it's beautiful." He waited. Let the silence breathe. Then, carefully, she turned to face him. "I'm late." Daniel blinked. "What do you mean?" Claire held his gaze. 5 days. His breath caught, just barely. "Have you tested?" "I wanted to wait. I didn't want to do it alone." His expression shifted, something between hope and caution. "Do you want me to come with you now?" She nodded. "I already bought the test. It's in my bathroom." They walked side by side down the hall, quiet but charged, the kind of silence that hums under the skin. Claire disappeared into her room while Daniel waited in the sitting area just outside her door. Minutes passed. Too many. The kind that stretch time thin and make it heavy. When Claire finally stepped out, the test clutched in her hand, her face unreadable, Daniel stood instantly. Their eyes met. Her lips parted. "I'm pregnant," she said, the words barely a whisper. The room tilted. His breath left him. Claire didn't smile. Not yet. It hadn't landed fully in her bones. "I don't know how to feel," she admitted, stepping closer. "Part of me is terrified. The other part doesn't believe it's real." Daniel reached for her hand hesitantly, almost reverently. "Claire," he said, voice low, "this is real." Her fingers tightened around his. "Everything changes now." He nodded. "Yes, but not everything has to be chaos." She gave a watery laugh, tears brimming. "You don't know that." "I don't," he said honestly. "But I do know we won't go through this alone." Her tears spilled over then, not from fear but from the strange, overwhelming relief of being seen, of not having to hold all of it by herself. Daniel stepped forward slowly, wrapping his arms around her not possessively, but gently, like he was anchoring both of them. She let herself lean into him, just for a minute, and that's when the knock came. Firm, sharp, 3 times. Claire pulled back, brows furrowed. Daniel's jaw set. "Stay here." She followed anyway. At the front door stood Luz, her face tense, lips pressed into a thin line. Daniel opened the door, and Luz stepped inside without ceremony. "We have a problem," she said, eyes flicking to Claire, then back to Daniel. "It's Marla. She's gone public." Claire's heart dropped. "What do you mean public?" Daniel asked. "She leaked the marriage contract to a blog that caters to society gossip, and not just that she's suggesting Claire's being paid to carry an heir." Claire's breath caught. "She what?" Luz pulled out her phone and held it up. "The article is spreading. It's already been picked up by 2 bigger outlets." Daniel's eyes darkened, but not with rage, just focus. Cold, sharp focus. "We'll issue a statement," he said. "Deny the financial claims. Emphasize our privacy. Legal will take care of it." "It won't be enough," Claire said quietly. They both looked at her. "She knows exactly how to spin it," she continued. "It's not about truth. It's about perception. And if this becomes the story, then everything we're building gets twisted into a joke." Luz hesitated. "Then maybe it's time you took control of the narrative." Claire blinked. "What are you suggesting?" "A press conference," Luz said. "Just you and Daniel. You don't have to give them everything. But if you show unity, authenticity, it'll force people to rethink the story." Daniel's jaw tightened. "That's dangerous." "It's real," Claire said, surprising them both, "and it might be the only thing that silences her." Daniel looked at her. She stepped closer. "We either hide or we speak, and I'm done hiding." He searched her face, something shifting in his expression. "Resolve." He nodded once. "Then we speak." Luz exhaled. "I'll coordinate with PR." As she left the room, Claire turned to Daniel. "Are you ready for this?" He paused, then reached for her hand again. "No," he said softly, "but I'll stand beside you anyway." She looked down at their joined hands. Her voice was quiet. "We're having a baby, and the world already wants to decide what that means." Daniel stepped forward, his forehead resting gently against hers. "Then let's show them what it really means." Claire closed her eyes, for the first time, not out of fear, but out of courage. And somewhere deep inside her, Under all the noise and uncertainty, something whispered, "This is how love begins, not with fireworks, but with quiet bravery." The press conference was scheduled for noon. Claire stood in front of the full-length mirror in the guest suite, smoothing down the soft navy wrap dress Luz had picked out for her. Her hair was pulled back in a low chignon, loose strands framing her face. She didn't look like herself, and yet, she did. A different version, one that had survived the unraveling and now stood on the edge of reclaiming her name. Her fingers trembled slightly as she fastened a delicate bracelet at her wrist, her mother's. The only thing she'd kept after the funeral, tucked away in a box for years. Now, she needed it. A knock came. "It's me," Daniel said from outside the door. "Come in." He stepped inside, pausing when he saw her. "You look," he started, then stopped himself. "Strong." Claire smiled, but her eyes shimmered. "Do I?" He nodded once. "Very." He was dressed in charcoal gray, no tie, top button undone, casual enough to look human, polished enough to look in control. She walked toward him. "Do we have a plan?" He hesitated. "We answer only what we choose. Luz will be close. If anything goes sideways, we walk." Claire nodded. "And if they ask about the pregnancy?" Daniel's gaze softened. "Then we tell them the truth." Her chest tightened. "It's still so early. What if we lose it?" "We won't," he said quietly. "You don't know that." "No," he admitted, "but I know if we do, we'll carry it together." The words pulled at her in ways she wasn't ready for. She swallowed, nodded, and took his hand. They rode to the hotel in silence, the hum of the car engine steady beneath them. Claire stared out the window, watching the world blur by storefronts, stoplights, pedestrians walking in and out of their lives without knowing. The hotel ballroom had been transformed. A backdrop bearing the Reyes Foundation logo stood behind a small podium, flanked by 2 chairs. Journalists lined the aisles, cameras poised, mics clipped to press badges. The buzz of anticipation was loud and constant. Claire could feel her pulse in her ears. Luz met them at the side entrance. "They're hungry," she whispered. "You don't have to give them everything, just enough to shift the narrative." Claire inhaled. "Let's do this." They walked out together, hand in hand, the cameras clicking wildly. A hush fell, then a wave of whispers. Daniel led her to the podium, but stepped back, letting her speak first. Claire leaned in, hands resting gently on either side of the mic. "My name is Claire Moore," she began. Her voice shook for only a moment. "And yes, I married Daniel Reyes. Yes, it began with a contract, but what's happened since then can't be reduced to a headline." A flicker of movement in the crowd, someone recording, someone whispering. She continued. "When we first entered this agreement, I was in a place of desperation, grief, uncertainty. I didn't think much about what came next, only how to survive." Her eyes met the crowd. "But then I found something unexpected. Space to breathe. Kindness I hadn't known I needed. And now hope." She looked back at Daniel briefly. He gave her the smallest nod. "I am pregnant," she said softly. A hush rippled through the room. "And yes, that was part of our plan. But the decision to keep this child, to love this child, is mine. Entirely mine." The silence was deafening now. Claire leaned forward slightly. "This child will grow up knowing that love can begin in the most unusual ways, that it can grow from honesty, from choice, from courage." She stepped back. Daniel took her place. "I won't defend my past," he said plainly, "but I will defend Claire, and the life we're building." He looked into the crowd, his voice calm but unyielding. "We don't owe you a perfect story. just a true one. And then he reached for her hand again. The questions came fast after that, blitzing, eager. About the contract, the timeline, their future. Luz stepped in quickly, redirecting, shielding. Within minutes, it was over. Back in the car, Claire exhaled like she'd been holding her breath the entire time. Daniel looked at her. "You were incredible." She gave him a weak smile. "I feel like I might throw up." "That's fair." They laughed, softly. It was the first time they'd done that, laughed without reservation. Back at the estate, the sun had begun to set. Claire stood on the balcony outside her room, sipping ginger tea, her body heavy with exhaustion and something else, relief. Daniel joined her quietly. "The press will spin it however they want," he said. She nodded. "But we said what mattered." They watched the sky shift from gold to pink, then dusky violet. Claire turned to him. "Do you ever wonder how different this would be if we'd met another way?" Daniel thought for a moment. "I used to. But now, I think maybe this was the only way I could have seen you clearly." She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "I've built walls my entire life. Around my name, my legacy. But you didn't come in looking for a way to break them down. You walked through the cracks." Claire's breath caught. "I didn't plan to feel this way," he added. She looked at him carefully. "What way?" He stepped closer, the space between them tightening. "Like, maybe. I'm learning what it means to love someone not because of what they do for you, but just because they're there." Her eyes stung. She didn't respond. Not yet. But she reached for his hand again. And this time it wasn't just solidarity. It was something blooming, something real, and something neither of them were ready to name but no longer afraid to feel. The first sign something was wrong came in silence. Claire sat in the ultrasound room, her palms clammy against the cool paper sheet on the exam table. Daniel sat beside her, unusually still, one hand on her knee, the other resting against his leg in a tight fist. The technician, a young woman named Bree, moved the wand gently across Claire's abdomen, eyes fixed on the monitor. No one spoke. Claire's heart thudded harder with each passing second. "Is everything all right?" she asked, trying to sound calm. Bree didn't answer right away. She clicked a few buttons, shifted the wand again, then again. Her face, still composed, had changed just slightly. A furrow in the brow, a tightness around the mouth. "I'm just going to step out and grab Dr. Halprin," Bree said gently. "She'll go over everything with you." Claire's hand clutched Daniel's immediately. "Why would she need to go over it?" Bree hesitated. "She'll explain. Just give us a moment." She was gone before Claire could stop her. The air shifted, heavier now. Daniel didn't move. Claire's voice broke the silence. "Say something." He looked at her, his eyes unreadable. "We don't know anything yet." But his hand had tightened around hers. Minutes later, Dr. Halprin entered, her expression professional but not detached. She pulled up the chair beside Claire and took a breath. "There's a small concern with the fetal heartbeat," she began. "It's faint, slower than we'd expect for this stage." Claire's stomach dropped. "What does that mean?" "It could be nothing," the doctor said carefully. "Early pregnancies can vary, but we need to monitor it closely over the next 72 hours. I'll schedule another scan. For now, rest. Stay hydrated, minimize stress." Daniel's voice was low. "And if it doesn't improve?" The doctor didn't sugarcoat it. "There's a chance this pregnancy won't progress." Claire didn't cry. Not yet. Not there. She nodded, numb, and thanked the doctor with a voice that didn't sound like her own. She got dressed slowly. Daniel waited in the hall, his hands in his pockets, his jaw clenched tight. Neither of them spoke on the ride home. Inside the estate, she walked straight to the nursery. It was quiet. Golden light poured in through the windows, touching the empty crib, the small rocking horse in the corner, the mobile that still hadn't been hung. She stood in the center of the room, arms wrapped around herself, the ache in her chest rising like a tide. Daniel stepped into the doorway, watching her. "Claire," she shook her head. Please don't tell me everything will be fine." He walked to her, slowly, and stopped just a step away. "I wasn't going to say that," he said, "because I don't know if it will be." Her throat tightened. "I feel like my body is failing, like I'm failing." "No," he said immediately. "No, Claire. You are not failing. You are carrying life, and that alone is more than anyone could ask." She turned to face him. Her eyes brimmed. "You say that now, but if we lose it—" He cut her off, voice breaking. "If we lose it, we'll grieve. Together. But I will not let you carry that grief alone. Do you hear me?" She stared at him, her chest shaking with the effort to hold everything in. "Do you regret this?" she whispered. "Any of it?" Daniel blinked, startled. "Regret?" She looked away. "Marrying me, the baby, this entire arrangement." His hands reached for hers, slowly, like asking permission. "Claire," he said quietly, "if I could go back, I'd still choose you." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "But we didn't fall in love," she said. "This wasn't about love." "I know," he said, "but it's becoming about something I don't have words for yet. But it's real, and I'm not going anywhere." She leaned into him then, her head against his chest, letting the weight of the moment collapse between them. His arms circled her, holding her as she trembled. They didn't speak again for a long time. That night, Claire lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Daniel slept beside her, one hand resting near hers on the mattress, not touching but close, like a promise. In the quiet, she whispered into the dark, "Please stay with me." She didn't know if she was speaking to the baby, or Daniel, or the fragile thread of hope inside her that refused to break. But somehow, in that moment, it felt like someone or something was listening. The morning light filtered through soft cotton drapes, brushing the walls of the bedroom in gold. Claire sat upright in bed, one hand resting gently on her abdomen, the other clutching her phone. The next scan was in less than 3 hours, and her body felt like it was made of glass, delicate, transparent, and dangerously close to shattering. Daniel entered the room with a tray toast, peppermint tea, and a bowl of strawberries. He set it down without a word, watching her closely. She offered a quiet, grateful smile. "You're spoiling me. I'd rather spoil you than let you sit in silence and spiral." Claire raised a brow. "You think I'm spiraling?" "I think you're trying not to, and that's worse." She looked away, eyes fixed on the steam curling from her tea. "I didn't sleep last night." "I know," he said, settling onto the edge of the bed beside her. "I heard you crying." Claire's breath caught. "I didn't want to wake you," she whispered. "You didn't have to. I was awake." A long pause passed between them. "I keep thinking," she murmured, "about what it means to love something that hasn't even lived yet." Daniel leaned closer, his voice low. "It means your heart's bigger than fear." Claire swallowed hard. "I'm not sure mine is." He reached for her hand. "Then let mine hold the rest." She let out a broken laugh. That was poetic. "Good. Maybe it'll be the one line they quote in the inevitable Netflix adaptation." Claire finally smiled, not forced genuine. When they arrived at the clinic, the waiting room felt colder than usual. like the air had shifted since their last visit. She gripped Daniel's hand tighter, her knuckles pale against his skin. "Doctor," Halprin entered with her usual composed grace, but something in her tone was softer this time. "Let's take a look, okay?" she said, guiding Claire gently into the room. The gel was cold, the wand familiar. Claire's breath held tight in her throat as the screen flickered to life. Then there it was, a steady flicker, clear, stronger. "There it is," Dr. Halprin said with a smile. "Heartbeat is within normal range now. Still early, but this is a good sign." Claire blinked, lips parted. "It's okay, for now," the doctor nodded. "It's okay." Claire covered her mouth with one hand as tears escaped in silent streaks down her cheeks. Daniel stepped closer, bending beside her, forehead pressed gently to hers. Neither spoke. They didn't need to. Back at the house, Luz was waiting with cautious eyes and questions, but when Claire stepped through the door with a tear-streaked smile and nodded once, Luz didn't ask. She only opened her arms. Claire hugged her like a sister, like someone who had stood quietly on the sidelines, believing for her when she couldn't. "You're glowing," Luz whispered, pulling back to touch Claire's cheek. "I'm terrified," Claire replied honestly. "That just means you care." Daniel joined them a moment later, coat still on, phone in hand. "I need to step into a board call," he said. "But I'll be back in an hour. We'll celebrate." Claire smiled. "I'll be here." But as soon as he left, Luz's tone changed. "You haven't told him, have you?" Claire stiffened. "Told him what?" "That you're falling for him." Claire looked away. "It's not that simple. It never is. I don't want to confuse this what we're doing with something it's not. And what if it is what you think it is?" Luz asked gently. "What if he's falling for you too, but he's just as scared?" Claire's chest tightened. "Then maybe we're both cowards." Luz shook her head. "No, just two people trying to unlearn everything they've been taught about love." That night, Claire sat alone in the nursery. No lights, just moonlight, casting long shadows over the crib. She traced the curve of the mobile still waiting to be hung, clouds and stars in soft felt, like tiny hopes floating in space. She heard the door creak softly behind her. Daniel stepped in, slower this time, his tie loose, eyes tired but soft. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "Just needed to be near her." Daniel crossed the room and sat on the edge of the rug, back against the wall. He looked around. "You're thinking about the future," he said. She nodded. He tilted his head. "So am I." Claire moved to sit beside him, their shoulders brushing. "Daniel," she whispered, unsure if she could finish the thought. "If this baby hadn't happened, would you still be here?" He looked at her, long and deep. "I think I would have found a way to stay." Claire's eyes filled again, but she didn't look away, and when she rested her head against his shoulder, he let her. Outside, the wind stirred the trees. Inside, the quiet finally felt like peace. The next morning brought rain, not the kind that thundered or flooded, just a soft, steady curtain that blanketed the Reyes estate in mist and quiet. Claire sat at the breakfast table, watching droplets race each other down the window pane. She should have felt calm, relieved, even. The scan had gone well. The baby was stable. Daniel had held her all night like it meant something. So why did her chest still feel tight? "You haven't touched your eggs," Luz said, placing a warm cup of herbal tea beside her. Claire blinked. "Sorry." Luz pulled out the chair across from her, sitting with a sigh. "Something's on your mind." Claire hesitated. Then, "He asked me last night if I thought he would have stayed, even without the baby. And what did you say? I didn't answer. Luz nodded, stirring her own tea. Because you're afraid if you say yes, and he leaves later, it'll break you. Claire's throat tightened. Something like that. I've known Daniel most of my life, Luz said softly. He doesn't do halfway. If he's in, he's all in. Claire looked down at her tea. Then why hasn't he said it? Because he's afraid too. Claire's head lifted. Luz met her eyes. He's not just risking a reputation or a company, Luz continued. He's risking his heart. And you, Claire, you make him feel something he's never let himself feel. Claire's gaze drifted back to the window. It still doesn't feel real. It won't, Luz said, standing, until you let it. Later that afternoon, Claire found herself wandering through Daniel's private study. She rarely entered the room. It felt like a place that still belonged to the man he'd been before her. But today, curiosity tugged her in. Books lined the shelves, legal tomes, economic texts, biographies of world leaders. On the desk sat a half-finished letter, written in his familiar, slanted handwriting. She didn't mean to read it, but her eyes couldn't help scanning the top line. To Sophia, if you're reading this one day, it means your mother has already told you everything. Claire's breath caught. She stepped back instinctively, heart racing. The sound of the door opening behind her made her spin. Daniel stood in the doorway, surprised but not angry. You found it. I didn't mean to, Claire said quickly. I just wandered in. His expression softened. It's okay. He walked to the desk and picked up the letter, folding it gently before placing it inside a drawer. I write to her sometimes, he said, when I can't find the words to say out loud. Claire stepped closer. What were you going to tell her? Daniel looked at her, eyes clear, that she was never a mistake, that she was chosen, wanted, even before I knew how to love her properly. Claire's lips parted, but no sound came. He stepped around the desk and stood before her. I've made a lot of decisions with logic, strategy, control. But this, his hand gestured between them. This wasn't one of them. She looked up at him, voice shaking. Then what was it? A leap. Claire's eyes shimmered. And if we fall? Daniel's voice dropped. Then we fall together. Something in her broke open, then not in pain, but in permission. Permission to feel what she'd kept locked behind fear and logic and rules. She closed the distance between them, pressing her forehead gently against his. I'm scared, she whispered. Me too. They stood there, suspended in that quiet truth, until the sound of the front gate buzzer echoed through the estate. Daniel pulled away slowly, his brow furrowing. I wasn't expecting anyone. Claire followed him into the hallway as Luz's voice came through the intercom. It's a reporter, she said, from the Ledger. Claims she knows Claire personally. Claire froze. Who? Name's Lauren Sterling. The name hit her like cold water. Daniel glanced at her. You know her? She's an old classmate. We interned together at the DA's office in Atlanta. Friend? Claire hesitated. Not exactly. She always wanted the story, not the truth. Daniel's jaw tightened. Should I send her away? Claire's mind raced. No. Let me talk to her. Daniel didn't move. Are you sure? She'll spin it worse if I don't. Claire met the reporter in the front sitting room, nerves tingling. Lauren stood poised, recorder in hand, her expression more curious than aggressive. Well, she said with a small smile, you've certainly made a name for yourself. Claire offered a calm smile. Not the way I planned. I wanted to give you a chance to speak before this story runs. Off the record, if you prefer. Claire's fingers curled around the armrest. And what exactly is the story? That your marriage isn't just unconventional. It may have been orchestrated to secure inheritance rights. The Reyes trust fund clause, marriage plus heir, isn't it? Claire didn't flinch. So you've done your homework. I'm a journalist. It's my job. Claire leaned forward. Then do it well. Don't just tell the story that sells, tell the one that matters. Lauren raised a brow. And that is? That two people, broken in different ways, tried to build something honest out of something that started as a deal. That the baby I'm carrying isn't leverage, it's love. Lauren paused. For the first time, she looked unsure. I'll need a statement, she said eventually. You'll get one. From both of us. And with that, Claire stood and walked out back toward the man waiting for her, and the life that, little by little, was becoming real. Claire paced the veranda as evening shadows draped the garden in muted blue. The scent of rain still lingered, soaked into the magnolia trees and flower beds that bordered the stone pathway. She clutched her phone to her chest, heart hammering beneath her sweater. Inside, Daniel was finishing up a video statement with his PR team. The fallout from Lauren's unexpected visit was already in motion. Social media whispers had started, and she could feel the weight of it creeping into every corner of their lives. But none of that compared to the real fear humming under her skin. What if this broke them? She heard the door creak open and turned to see Daniel walking toward her. Jacket off, sleeves rolled up, hair slightly disheveled. It's done, he said, exhaling. Statements drafted. We go live with it tomorrow. She nodded, folding her arms tightly across her chest. Daniel stepped closer. You did well with Lauren. Luz told me what you said. Claire managed a weak smile. I meant every word. He studied her. Then what's wrong? Claire hesitated. The silence stretched. She turned away, eyes on the horizon. There's something about being loved for the wrong reasons. It haunts me. Daniel's voice was soft behind her. Do you think that's what this is? I don't know, she whispered. Sometimes I wonder if this whole thing, our marriage, this baby, the way we found each other, it's all just built on circumstances, not choice. He didn't respond right away. Then, come with me. She blinked. Where? Just trust me. Claire followed him through the house, past the kitchen where Luz was arranging dinner, down a hallway she hadn't walked before. At the end, Daniel opened a door. Inside was a small room, walls bare, a single table, and on it, a box. He opened the lid. Inside were photographs, dozens, some faded, some recent. He pulled one out, a picture of a younger Daniel, standing beside a man in a crisp suit. His father, Claire guessed. This was taken the day I took over the Reyes estate, Daniel said. It was supposed to be the proudest moment of my life, but I felt nothing. Claire said nothing, sensing the weight behind his words. He picked up another photo, this one of Claire at their courthouse wedding. Her smile hesitant, eyes uncertain. I keep this one here because it reminds me of the exact moment everything started to change, he said. I didn't know it yet, but that day, I stopped living for someone else's legacy. Claire looked at him, stunned. I built a life around control, expectations, image, Daniel said. And then you walked in, scared, determined, honest. He stepped closer, his voice steady but full. You didn't ask for my wealth. You didn't play games. You made me feel seen, Claire. And for the first time in years, I wanted something real. Her eyes shimmered, even if it started as a contract. Especially because it did, because we had every reason not to fall. And yet here we are. Claire swallowed. And where is that, exactly? Daniel took her hand, gently placing it over his heart. Right here. The moment hung between them, heavy, quiet, beautiful. Then his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, jaw tightening. It's the board. Claire stepped back slightly. You should take it. He looked at her. Not tonight. You sure? I'm done choosing business over life. They walked back together, hands brushing. As they passed through the foyer, Claire's phone buzzed this time. A message from Lauren. I've decided to rework the story. You gave me more than a headline, you gave me heart. I won't betray that. Claire showed it to Daniel, eyes wide. He read it, then looked at her. See? She let out a slow breath. Maybe not everything has to fall apart first. No, Daniel said, threading his fingers through hers. Sometimes, it just has to fall into place. They stood there a moment longer, quiet, fingers entwined, as the first stars blinked awake in the night sky. And for the first time in a long time, Claire didn't feel like she was waiting for something to go wrong. She just felt like she was home. The late afternoon sun poured golden light through the nursery windows. Dust motes danced lazily in the warmth, and the air was filled with the soft rhythm of Claire's breathing as she cradled her daughter against her chest. Sophia, so small, so impossibly perfect. Her fingers curled instinctively around Claire's pinky, as if claiming her mine. Claire couldn't stop the tears. They weren't from pain or fear this time. They were from something softer, deeper, the kind of joy that cracked you open from the inside out. She's got your lips, Daniel whispered from the doorway, his tie gone, sleeves rolled, hair tousled like he'd run his hands through it 100 times since the delivery. He didn't step inside yet. He just looked at them, his wife, his child, as if he couldn't quite believe they were real. Claire looked down at the tiny bundle in her arms. She has your stubborn brow, Daniel chuckled. God help us both. He crossed the room slowly and knelt beside the rocking chair, eyes level with hers. I thought I understood love, he said, voice low, reverent. I thought it was about loyalty or sacrifice, or making the right choice at the right time. But I had no idea, until I watched you become her mother. Claire blinked through the blur. I didn't do it alone. No, he said, gently touching Sophia's cheek with one finger. But you led the way. There was a quiet between them that didn't ask to be filled, the kind of silence that said, this is enough, until Claire whispered, she's more than we ever expected, and everything we didn't know we needed, Daniel finished. A soft knock tapped at the door, and Luz peeked in with red-rimmed eyes and a smile too big to hold back. Can I come spoil my goddaughter now? Claire laughed. Get in here before I cry again. Luz entered with a bouquet of hydrangeas from the garden and a tiny pink knit hat she'd made in secret. She placed the flowers on the windowsill and handed the hat to Daniel. I made it for her, she said softly, but it's also for you two, a symbol. Daniel frowned, curious. Of what? Of warmth, Luz said. Of covering the things we love, of protecting what matters most. Claire clutched the baby closer as Luz kissed her forehead. You did it, sweetheart. Claire looked at her. We did. Later that night, after Sophia had fallen asleep in the bassinet and the house settled into its new rhythm, Claire sat outside on the porch, wrapped in a shawl, the southern air cool and still. Daniel joined her, carrying 2 mugs of decaf coffee and an envelope. What's that? She asked. He handed it to her wordlessly. She opened it slowly. Inside was a legal document, the revised marriage agreement. The original contract terminated. Claire's breath hitched. You didn't have to. I did, he said, taking her hand. Because I don't want this to be something we owe. I want it to be something we choose. Every day. From now on. Claire looked up at him, eyes glassy. So, what are you saying? Daniel knelt in front of her, not with a diamond, not with a script, just with sincerity. I'm saying, if I could start this all over again, I wouldn't change a thing. Not the business deal, not the arguments, not even the fear, because it led me to this moment, right here. He paused. So, Claire Whitmore, will you marry me again? This time, not for business, not out of obligation, just love. Her heart felt like it might burst. She reached for him, her hand trembling, her laugh breaking through the tears. Yes, God, yes. They kissed slowly, sweetly, like a promise. Inside the house, Sophia stirred in her sleep, and Luz's soft humming could be heard through the open window. An old lullaby passed down through generations. As they sat on the porch, hand in hand, watching the stars blink awake, Claire whispered, I was so afraid we'd never feel real. Daniel squeezed her fingers. Then let this be our proof. And in that quiet, under the moonlight, with their daughter asleep inside and their future finally theirs to choose, Claire knew something with full certainty. This wasn't just the most beautiful love story she'd ever lived. It was the one she'd never dared to dream, until now.